All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Harvey. And thanks everyone for coming this evening. I know it doesn't sound like the most exciting topic in the world, not quite as potentially exciting as drones and satellite. However, I do think there's quite a bit here, and I'm hoping you'll get something good out of it. I know when we were first talking about what kind of things do we want to cover, this is one I definitely want to do because I think it's a really powerful, reasonably simple to use tool that most people aren't aware of, or a couple tools here. So I'm excited to kind of share those with you this evening. Hopefully you get some use out of it. So we're going to jump right in. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time in PowerPoint here, hopefully. I did want to spend a little bit of time just kind of going over what are the tools, give you a little bit of sense of what we're going to do, then jump directly into a demo. So we've got a real, actual, not a real, we've got a made up, realistic use case that I want to cover to kind of show you what we're going to be doing, both for Power Query and Power BI. Once we've done that, there's some list of resources. Again, this isn't meant to teach you how to use it. It's more to expose you to it and see so that you know if, is there a potential use case in your day-to-day work for it. So if you want to follow up with more resources, they're there for you. And then maybe we'll jump into some questions. Should have some time, hopefully at the end. Okay, so what are Power Query and Power BI? So Power Query is a tool available within Excel and also within Power BI, but essentially what it is a way to pull data together from all kinds of different sources, clean it up, transform it, do things to it, get it organized the way that we want, and then pull that into Excel. So the great part about it though is once you've done that, it's kind of, you think of it as recording what you're doing. Once you've cleaned it up and pulled it in, when you hit refresh, it'll go off and go back to those original sources that you had and bring it in again. So if there's been a change or you've added new data, anything like that, it'll bring that data in, apply the same changes that you made and bring it back into Excel. So quite powerful. The other part of it that I think is really interesting is the combining data. So if you've got one set of data and another, and there's a link between them, you want to bring them together, rather than having to go off and use a database to do that join, or using VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, etc. in Excel, which can be quite brittle. This is a really good way of actually doing that. So that's Power Query. Power BI is very different. Power BI is, think of it as a graphing reporting type of tool. It's used for that. It's available. So Power BI Desktop, which is what we're going to be looking at, is available for free. You just download it and start using it. There's a whole other world of Power BI, which is publishing and sharing those dashboards and reports that you create. That is a licensed thing. So through Microsoft, you typically have to buy a new license. And even if you have Office 365, there's another license on top of that. We're not going to cover that. We're just going to look at Power BI Desktop, which is available for free, but it is where all of the analysis and report building actually happens. So it's quite a good tool, even if you don't invest in the license. Okay. So as I kept alluding to, I think there's a pretty common problem in forestry because we're dealing with Excel files and we've maybe got some stuff over in GIS and we've got some other text files and an Access database with some cruise data in it. Bringing those all together is always a struggle, right? And oftentimes it's repetitive work. I bring it together once, something changes, or there's new data next month. I need to go through all of that process again. So these tools, the Power Query, the real the value here is reducing that repeatability, or being able to do it once and then have it done and just hit refresh the next time that you want to do it and add more data in it. So yeah, as I mentioned, there's all kinds. So you can bring in Excel files, CSV files, DBF. No, actually not DBFs. SQL database tables, Microsoft Access, PDFs. You can actually scrape web pages, lots of data, bring those all into one spreadsheet. And then, as I said, once it's there and you've built that link, then you just hit refresh the next time and it automatically goes out, checks for changes, brings it in. And the combining data. So I've got a table with information here and here, and I want to combine those two together. It's a really interesting way of doing that. And Power BI, again, this is just a screenshot. We'll get into this, but essentially lots of tools, really good tools for creating graphs and reports. If I need to generate a report or a graph, sorry, typically I'll go here rather than doing it in Excel because I find it's a lot easier and a lot more powerful doing it in Power BI than trying to mess around with those graphs in Excel. So that's Power BI. Cover that. So we're jump into the demo just to give you a sense of what we're doing though before we actually go in there. So we've got a scenario, a realistic, let's call it scenario. There's all kinds I was trying to think of that we could do. Could be bringing cruise data together or surveys, mill production, all kinds of things. This scenario is I'm managing some contractors and land base, and I've got harvest jobs and I've got load tickets, and I'm tired of copying pasting them every week whenever the company that people that we deliver to, our clients, customers, send us load tickets. I'm tired of copying and pasting those. I want to bring them all in together and combine that with information about the job into one table. That's the scenario. So what are we going to do? We're going to go into Excel. We're going to use Power Query. We're going to grab those different sources, pull them in. We're going to do a little bit of cleaning and standardizing. We're going to merge all those different tables into one tables that we can use. And then we're going to pull that into Excel. Once we've done that, you could work with it in Excel the same way as you would any other table once it's in there. However, what we're then going to do is go over to Power BI, grab that table, and then start doing some graphing and analysis over there. Okay, sound good? Let's jump in. So I've got here a folder. This is just, as I mentioned, sort of realistic but not real data. So, and I try to keep this fairly simple because the idea, again, isn't to overwhelm me with complexity. It's just to give some sense of what's possible. So I've got a sheet here, harvest jobs. This is a job perhaps me as a manager might maintain. It's a list of all of my current active or maybe planned harvest jobs. I've got a job number. I've got a landowner that we're working on, a region, contractor number. So this is who's assigned to it. And then I've got planned volumes. So I think in this scenario, we'll skip the planned versus actual, but that's actually a really powerful tool as well. So here's my list of jobs. Then I've got this folder. So most of my wood is going to this company called Betterwood. Every week they send me a new Excel file with loads that were delivered there that week. If I open that up, I can see, okay, I've got a date. I've got a harvest job number. That harvest job number doesn't match my job number. I need to extract my job number out of there somehow in order to combine those two together. So we'll cover that. And we've got some truck information, product type, and a weight, and a scale location. And in this particular case, I've got 3 weeks worth of data, but I literally could have, 50, 100, 300 different files in this folder. That part doesn't matter, as long as they're the same format, which typically in this situation would be the case. Okay, so let's combine all of that together into something that's usable. So the first thing we're going to do, which is most often the case, we're going to open up a new Excel sheet here because we're starting from scratch. Let's call this all deliveries. And I'm going to open that up. So I want to end up with all of my data in here. However, I need to go into Power Query first and organize all of the data before it comes in here. So here's where the magic is hidden. It took me a while to find this. So if I click on data and then I go to get data, down here, there's some different ways of doing this, but this is the way I keep coming back to launch Power Query editor. So again, data, get data, launch Power Query editor. So once I do that, it's going to bring me into this whole new world with a lot of options. This really could be a program onto itself, not just a tool within Excel. But anyway, so to start off, so think of there's different sources. So in this, I can bring in sort data from all over the place. I'm going to be bringing in my harvest job list, as well as all of my combined tables of load tickets in here. Each one of those is a different source. So I'm going to go to my first one. So new source file, in this case, and it's an Excel file that I want. However, it could be CSVs, databases. There's all kinds of different options of what I can actually have as a source here. But I'm going to go to a good old Excel workbook. So now I'm going to go and pick my file, which is my harvest job. So let's start with think of it as a hierarchy. We'll start at the highest level. Harvest jobs, I'm going to import that. So it's an Excel workbook that I've opened. So it's going to ask me, okay, of this workbook, which worksheet does the data reside on that you want? There's only one worksheet, so I'm going to select that and I'm going to hit OK. When I do that, it basically is bringing this in here. In this case, there's not really anything that I need to do. The data looks pretty clean. I've got my harvest job number. I've got my owner, my region, contractor. We said we weren't going to deal with planned, so I'm going to click on those ones. I do one at a time. Right click and remove. Same thing here. Right click and remove. So all of the tools that you can use for cleaning and merging and so on the data, typically you right click on the column, you've got a whole bunch of stuff there. Then you've also got all kinds of tools across the top here, and we'll cover a couple of those. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to load that data. So I'm just going to go close and load. When I do that, it brought that data in here. Now I didn't have to bring it into Excel. I could have waited till I had all of the data, but I just wanted to show you sort of the process of bringing that in. So now I've got that data loaded in here as a table. If I go back here and I go to edit, it's going to take me back into, I could have gone the other route, but this is another way, as I said, into here. So now I see my data. I've got the one data source. Over here on the right-hand side, now you'll see there's these steps. These are the steps that I've taken so far to either clean or organize or change this data. And these are all here. So I can add new steps. If there's new things that I want to do, I can just do it and it'll kind of record it there. Or I can go back and change it. So I can go into here, I could remove that step. I can change something about it, but typically you're on the last step and then you're going to do more information there. So harvest jobs, that's all good. If you remember, I think I covered, there's a contractor table. So in this table, I just know this harvest contractor ID, but I want the actual name. So I'm going to bring that in as a new source and go to this workbook. And here's my list of contractors. I'm going to bring that in, click on it again, hit OK. So now I notice, oh, I didn't bring in something was different about that spreadsheet. It wasn't clean. Maybe there's a row problem. It didn't bring in those as column headers, but that's no problem. I'm just going to go use first row as header, and that's going to change that. As you can see, it changed. It added this step over here. So that's all good. I like that. Now, I want to combine those two tables together. I've got my contractor ID and name here, and over my harvest job, I've got a contractor ID, but I don't have the name. So I want to merge that because I want to see the contractor name here included with the harvest job. So to do that, I'm going to go here to merge queries. So this is the combining part. This is the step that kind of replaces databases or VLOOKUP and so on. So I can do two tables. So I've got the harvest job, the one that I started from. I can say, okay, I want to merge that with my contractor table. Now I need to select the columns that are the same between the two. So in my harvest jobs, I've got harvest contractor ID, and down here I've got contractor ID. I just click on that, and usually I get, yeah, this is all matching. It gives me information about whether it makes sense or not, and I hit OK. So now they're merged. So now I've got my harvest job data, and it's associated with this contractor table. What I do now is click on this little split thing. And when I do that, I can decide, okay, what of that contractor table do I want to keep in here? And in this case, the only thing I want is my contractor name. So I click that, and now I've got contractor name. I'm going to double click that, change the name of the column to something a little more easy, and that's it. So now I've got harvest jobs with contractor name. So now we need to bring in that delivery data. So that's another new source. In this case, it's a whole bunch of files that are in one folder, not one file. So I want to connect to the folder. so that if I add new data, new files to that folder, it'll automatically grab it rather than connecting to just one. So on File, go down here to Folder, connect that, and I'm going to navigate to my folder. I'm going to pick it, and it's going to look and say, oh, okay, there's three. If you remember, there was 3 weeks worth of deliveries in there. It's got these 3 files. So I want to combine and transform. I click that. So it's gone and merged all of those together, found the common columns between all of them. It found there's a tickets. So I click that, hit OK. So now I've got one merged view of all of those files in there essentially, and I can start to clean this up. So source name, I don't really need to, I'm not going to need that. I'm going to remove that. Delivery date, yeah, I'm going to need that. Harvest job. We're not going to talk about trucks right now to keep it simple, but I could link to trucks and report on trucks, but let's just remove that from now. I've got driver, I've got weight T, let's change that to tons. Scale location, I don't need that. I get rid of that. Now, harvest job, if you notice, this is BW 1205, some kind of naming convention this other company has. But in my case, in my harvest jobs, it's just the number, and you'll notice it's a number. So there's a bunch of ways I could clean that up. However, I wanted to specifically show one which is really powerful. So what I want out of this is a new column called job number, which is just the number, and it gets rid of this BW underscore da 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 da, so that I can then merge those two together, right? So I'm going to go add column from example. If I go to custom columns, I can do similar to Excel. I can create a new column based on a formula and use any of these features in there the way that you would in Excel. But Power Query has this custom or column from example. So if I click on that, it gives me this new column. And what it wants me to do is type in what I want to see in this particular row. So in this row number 1, my harvest job is BW 1205A. What I want is just 1205. Click that. Boom. It recognized that, yes, it's just this one number that's out of here, and it goes and grabs it. Sometimes it can be a little bit more complicated. You have to put in more examples. But this is really, really powerful way of doing that. Super cool. So I'm just going to hit OK. So now I've created this new column, which is my job number. It's given this name text between delimiters. I don't like that. I want to call it job number, like that. So now that I have that, I don't need this. I'm going to remove that one. So now I've got delivery date, product type. I just want to call that product. Got tons, and I've got a job number. Okay, and let's call this all loads, right? Because this is all of the loads. So now, last step, I want to merge these load data with my harvest job data so that I know information about how many loads came in by job, etc. So I'm going to go back to harvest jobs, and I'm going to do that merge step again. So I go to home here, I'm going to go merge, and I want to merge harvest jobs with all loads. Now you'll notice if I try to do this, I click on harvest job number and I want to join it to harvest job. It's giving me a little bit of an error here saying select columns of the same type. So if you look here, one of these is a character text field and one of these is a number field. So it's not going to work. So let's back out. Let's go back to here. And I notice if I look at job number, it's got this little ABC telling me it's a text field. So I want to change that to a number. So I'm just going to right click on that. I'm going to go change type, whole number. Notice they'd added this step down here, recorded that. So that's all good. Now I can go back to harvest jobs. Let's try merge queries again. So I'm merging harvest jobs with all loads. I want to merge based on harvest job number. Oh, now it's good. And 22 out of 25. So some of those jobs don't have deliveries. That's okay. I'm gonna hit OK. Now I've got my all loads table. So again, if you remember, we can now say, decide what we want to know about those loads for those jobs. So I click on that. I don't want everything, but I want to know the date, product, how many tons. I've already got job number. I don't need that again. I just need to know the date, the product, and the tons. Hit that, okay. So now it's expanded that out because obviously I've got a lot more loads than jobs, but now I have this table with contract harvest job information, contractor information, and delivery information. So let's just clean this up a little bit. We'll call that date. We'll call this product. And we'll call this tons. Boom. Looks great. Is there anything else I want to do to this? That's a number, owner. It all looks good. So now let's go close and load. When I do that, so I've got my loads table, my contractor table, and now I've got this harvest jobs. So that was the one that I was working with. And this is a table of all of my deliveries by, so I've got tons, product, date, contractor, and job, right? All merged into one. If I save that file, that's already saved. The next time I open that, if I want to update, so let's say I put new delivery information in there or change something about a contract or anything like that. If I go in here and go to data and click refresh all, it's going to go off, find all of those files, look if there's any new ones, do all of those steps that I just did and pull the data in again, right? So now that I've done this once, I don't need to do it again. So that's Power Query. I'm sure there's questions, but we'll go through Power BI first, and then come back around to that. Okay, so I'm going to close that down. Now, Power BI, the simplest, if you are not using it already, and if you are using it, that's fantastic, but let's assume you're not. So the easiest way to install this, because it's a Microsoft product, is if I go to my search bar, and sorry, I'm assuming everybody's using Windows. I go to my search bar and I'm going to go to store, which was this experience Microsoft thought was going to be great, but anyway, but it's still a good way to find some things. So I'm going to go to the Microsoft store and I'm going to type in Power BI. And there it is there, the desktop app. I clicked on it. So I've already got it installed. If you don't already, you're going to hit install and then you've got it. Simple as that. Okay. So instead, I'm going to go here and I'm going to search for it and I'm going to open the actual application. So I'm going to start off with let's start off with a blank report. Once I've saved a report, obviously I can come back and reopen it and refresh and see all my data, but I'm starting from scratch here. So I'm going to go fresh report. The first thing that it wants to do is add data to it. So we're going to use that file that we just created. All of those steps that we did, we could have actually done that in Power Query from Power BI and skipped the Excel step entirely and just did it there and come bring it in, which is absolutely fine. But oftentimes it's good to have Excel too. So, but similar to the Excel side with Power Query, we can bring stuff in from a database, Excel files, the internet, whatever. In this case, we just have that one spreadsheet that we created. So I'm going to import data from Excel. So it's going to ask me for the sheet. Remember, we saved that as all deliveries, I think, hopefully, like open. So now it is a spreadsheet. You remember we had a whole bunch of sheets in there, and I think we saved that as harvest jobs. Is that right? If I click on that, yes, that's giving me all of this stuff. So I'm going to click load. The transform, you might have noticed there was a transform data. Essentially, that's going to take you to Power Query, and you could do more stuff there. So we're in a new application here. We've got a menu across the top. I'll come back to some of those things. The important part here is this one sort of canvas in the center. This is where we can add different charts, graphs, reports, etc. in there. Sort of, it's literally a blank canvas. And then we've got pages. So by default, we're starting here on page 1. We could add more stuff over on a separate page, go on and on and on. This is the canvas that we're going to put our reports on. Over on the far right, we've got our data sources. So you can have more than one data source in here. We just brought in that one harvest job data source. But if I open that up, I can see all of the different fields, columns that were in there. So I have those available to me to use. And then the really important part is this here. So there's visualizations. So I don't know how well you can see this, but each one of those is like a little thumbnail of a different type of chart. So if I click on one of these, so for example, a stacked column chart, click on that, it's going to put it over here in my canvas. I can move this around, I can resize it, all of those good things. But what it also did when I'm clicked on this, it has this panel here where I can set up what it is that I want to see on that graph. And I think you'll find once you get onto it or get used to it, it's a lot more intuitive than the way it is to set up graphs in Excel. We'll see, but that's what I found. So I've got my data over here on this far right, and then here is asking me, okay, what do you want to put in the chart? So all I need to do is grab stuff and drop it. So let's say I want to see a chart of product. So I want product across the bottom. So I'm going to put product in the x-axis. I want to see the total amount of tons. So I'm going to grab tons, sorry, and I'm going to grab that into the y-axis, right? So I've got two products, saw log and studwood. There it is. And let's say I want to see that broken down by region. So I'm going to grab region, throw it over here in the legend, and now I've got just that. A chart of total tons by salt, by product and region. I can add more. I can change this around. Like, let's change that up. Let's make it by, oh, I didn't change it. Let's do it by region and product. So I just drag them around. It's a lot easier to quickly get to what you want, I find, than it is in Excel. Okay, so that's one chart. I can add other ones to it. So one of the ones that you don't often see because it's not in Excel is this tree map. I find this one really useful. So what this is, so I've got my graph here and clicked on it. So now I can add things to it. So let's say I want to know roughly by contractor, how much wood are they delivering? So I'm going to grab my tons and put it in values, and my category, I'm going to put contractor name in here. So what it does, it's pretty simple. It's just an area-based thing. The more tons, the bigger the square is for that contractor. So quick way of visualizing it. However, it does point out there's a really interesting use case here because these are interactive. So if I click on, I've got Cape Logging and Sons Limited. If I click on them, then it's going to update my other graph to show me, okay, on this graph, how much of the wood came from Cape Logging? If I click on South Shore Harvesting, same thing, Acadian, it's updating my other graphs based on that. And I can hold down the control key, select a few of them and see them that way. So those are, and then obviously there's all kinds of other charts in here. So for example, pie chart, let's do owner by tons. Where's my wood coming from? You can see here. And again, because I've got these selected, so I'm going to just get off that. So it's updating those. And now if I click on one of these, so this one, private woodlot group, it's updated. So I now relatively in the other charts, how much is coming from that. Very, very good when you want to start diving in and teasing data apart. If I'm clicked on a chart, I'm not going to spend a lot of time finicking around with formatting and names and all that stuff. However, just so you know, so you can, oftentimes you can, if you go over here, so this on here is like what's in the graph. The next little tab over is formatting. So in here is where you start controlling font and color and size and all of those things. And you can get really, really detailed about what's in there. So, and that's the same for all of them. So if I click on here, same idea. I've got different options available depending on what the chart is and all of those types of things. As I mentioned, I can create another page. So I could have, okay, this is an overview. I can go over here and put new data in here. Um, let's do, so here's one I like using. It's called a decomposition tree, which I can't explain, but will become obvious once we do it. I'm going to make this big. And in here, I'm going to drag, I want to analyze, the important ones when I want to analyze, which is going to be tons. And I want to be able to slice and dice things based on, again, I'm going to drag, explain things by contractor or by owner or by product or by region. What did I get? Am I missing anything? Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, so the way this works, I start off on the left-hand side with the total amount of whatever it is I'm analyzing. So in this case, it's tons. So I can see there's 1,000 tons is in the data set that we're looking at. If I click this plus, I can say, okay, how do I want to analyze this next? So let's say, okay, I want to know by product. When I do that, it then splits that out. It says, oh, okay, of that 1,000 tons, 638 were sawlog and 448 were studwood. Okay, of that sawlog, what contractor did it come from? So again, it keeps splitting things out. And now I can back up, say, oh, you know what? Let's go by region first. So most of it came from Central. In Central, what contractor sent it? Oh, Cape Logging and Son. So really powerful way of doing it. Kind of a way of sort of exploring the data and looking where things are coming from. There's maps. You can actually sort of do density maps and so on. The only thing is, other than XY points, so if you want to bring in lat and long, it does a really good job of it. It's not a GIS, but if you've got points and you want to associate things within, um, yeah, I mean, you could spend a day in here. Like, let's just go back to one of these. So we've got different types of bar charts, line charts, area charts, all kinds of things. You can just, as you change them around, you can see them. Um, Back to that. And again, you can get into the finer details either here, what's being displayed, or going up here to get in like formatting type things. So once you're happy with it, it's just a matter of saving this. Think of it as a project. Then we'll go save as. We will put that same spot in our demo data. We'll call this our BI report and save. So now a week later, if my data's changed, again, all I need to do is click refresh and it's going to go back to that spreadsheet, grab it, bring it in. Now, why you might want to do the Power Query step in here. So if this is something that you're doing a lot of, that refresh is just going back to the Excel sheet itself. If I wanted to update the data in the Excel sheet, I would need to go there and click refresh. Whereas if I had built those Power Query steps here directly in Power BI, hitting refresh would just refresh everything essentially. Okay, so, and then the other piece is, so if I wanted to publish this to make it available to everybody in my company or whatever, to have a dashboard that updates every week showing deliveries or safety statistics or whatever it is, then it's just this publish. I don't have a license, but if I had a license and click publish, you can then share it with people and their dashboard will automatically update depending on the schedule that you set and all of those kinds of things. Again, that's where the payment part comes in, is the publishing. This part is entirely free. Oftentimes what I'll do if I'm creating a chart, I have this if I want to report on something. If I want to grab a chart and use it in something that I'm building or an email or whatever, then just do a screen, snap it, grab a screenshot of it. That's all. Okay. I think that is about it. Let's just go back to the PowerPoint here. So yeah, I didn't as you can see, there's a whole there's a whole other world in there. There's a lot of things that you can do. Way more powerful than what we just covered, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of kind of what we're talking about here. If you want to dig in more, there's some resources here. There's videos and all kinds of things that you can go and look at. The good thing is the stuff that we've seen, this is just if you've got an Office 365 account, which most people do these days, or in Excel, it's there and available for you. There's no additional cost um, of doing that. The other thing, these are specific resources, and again, in today's world with AI, if you're using it and you want to figure wonder what how to do something, type it into ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever your LLM of choice is, and it's very well known, so you usually get very reliable answers in there. Okay, so that's all I had. Hopefully that gives you a sense of capabilities. As I said, there's a lot more there, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of it. And maybe there's something that you can use sort of in your day-to-day or week-to-week work. And we'll stop there.